We're live. It's happening. I think this is one of our last cafe rides for the season. Loaf is somewhere over here. I don't know if we can see him. He's very excited for it. Kait Boyle will be joining us, so let's request her. I'm super excited to chat with Kait. She is such... Let's see. Invite. All right, so hopefully she'll join shortly. And in the meantime, you just get to have to deal with me rambling about my tea. No, Kait. Kait is like an ultra endurance athlete who has done just about every gigantic trail in the U.S. And she's building a nonprofit for trail advocacy. And oh, look, there she is. Hey. Hello. Your sound, I can't hear you. Let's see. You're freezing. Oh no, we might have technical difficulties here. Kait, should we try again? I can't. You're no good. Okay, I think she dipped out. Hopefully, view request. Let's see. Let's see if that works. Accept. Okay. I can't hear you.
Can't hear me.
Okay, maybe I can kind of hear you now. Try again.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we're good.
Oh, yes, thank God.
Yeah. Welcome
Technology.
to the technical difficulties of the internet. No, thanks so much for joining. I'm super excited to chat. You're just like a total badass. And it was just ironic that I was chatting with a guest the other night. We're like, oh my God, she's awesome. Like, we all need to go ride together soon. So it worked out.
Yeah, I'm excited.
But where are you right now?
I am in my living room in Victor, Idaho, which my dog Hank has just realized that I'm not paying attention to him, and he's bouncing a racquetball around the living room. And so
Classic.
I might grab that so that you don't just get that.
That's okay. The dog distraction is one of my favorite things. As we all know, I love my dog named Loaf, who's just kind of walking around. But hopefully when Kait comes back, we will chat about her awesome accomplishments. Sweet. Nice. Well, yeah, let's kick this off. I would love, let's start with a quick background on, your, I guess, like entry into cycling and how that's kind of shaped, what you're doing now and all the advocacy work you're doing now, which is super incredible. And of course, I want to chat about like the accident and coming back from that. So feel free, take it away. This is all about you.
Thanks, Reese. Yeah, thanks everyone for joining. It's fun to be here. Although I have to say, I think joining for a physical bike ride with coffee would be even better. Although
yes, hopefully in March we can do that.
Yes, totally. Yeah, so I found cycling the way a lot of climbers and runners do, and that was through injury.
Yeah.
And as I broke my ankle climbing in 2010, and it was a pretty big injury. It was like dislocated and broke both bones and had surgery. And my surgeon was like, well, this is pretty bad, and as far as like climbing and athletic things go, like you're probably not going to do that much in the future.
Prove them wrong.
Totally. And so I was like, well, that's not a fair thing to say to someone. Like,
oh my God, I would have. Did you have like a mental breakdown? I would have. If someone told me that, I would be like, what? Hold up.
Kind of. I think that I was mostly just like, no, there's no way that this lady is right.
Yeah.
That you know, you can be so limited from one accident. And like, I know that can be the case, but I think that I just found myself in a situation where it's like, well, I'm just going to make the most of what I can do and
Right.
find ways to get outside and recover really well. And so
Yeah.
that happened first getting on a bike. And for a lot of people, bikes are one of the first things you can do after accidents or recoveries and surgeries. And so,
Yep.
yeah, I got on a bike and pretty quickly was like, whoa, this is really cool because, like, running, it's an endurance activity, but like skiing or climbing, mountain biking is technical and you can like find that flow state.
Yep.
And then within that first year, I also realized that if I took my backcountry overnight gear, which at the time I was in like a full-time world of teaching outdoor ed, and so I spent
Okay.
a lot of time traveling in the backcountry for multiple days and weeks and months. And so I realized that if I just brought that stuff with me, I could go even farther and have even more of that like endurance experience and flow state of moving through landscapes.
Yeah.
I could also move through places at a speed that was pretty efficient.
Yeah.
And I could see whole landscapes change, you know, compared to like on your feet. And so that really spoke to me. And within that first year, I bikepacked the Great Divide mountain bike route.
Rad.
After first experimenting with bikepacking with my backpack on my back for Kokopelli.
Oh man.
Which I don't recommend anyone do.
I was gonna say that's so painful to think about having like that gigantic pack or something on your back or something.
Yeah, I don't recommend it. I think that anyone here clearly has more technology ability than I did at the time. I didn't really realize that bikepacking was a thing and that there were bags, which there are now a lot of.
Yes.
So, yeah, that was a pretty quick intro to bikepacking. And then the Great Divide route was just pretty transformative in a way that I don't think I quite realized because it launched this whole next decade plus for me of bikepacking around the world and just realizing the amazing experiences that you can have on a bike and how you can connect to landscape and other people through that way of traveling. And yeah, that's really what has inspired both my kind of personal athletic goals and pursuits on the bike, and then also concurrently the desire to really advocate for those landscapes and for better opportunities for people to join the bikepacking and mountain biking communities.
Yeah. So talk to me about maybe, you know, the nonprofit you started and how or when and why you were like, yes, this is definitely something I need to do aside from just, you know, obviously your own personal athletic pursuits. Like what was the, I guess, motivator behind that?
The motivator, so it was in 2015, I believe, that my friend Kurt Refsnyder and I were traveling to go down to Patagonia, like the region of South America, not the town in Arizona.
Got it. I was like, oh.
Which is also really cool.
Yeah.
But we were traveling down there to go bikepacking for a month, and at the time, bikepacking was really seeing one of its first big booms. In that, what was really exploding was bikepack racing, and at the time it felt like the way that people were getting into bikepacking was through racing, which
interesting.
Included all of us. And there were certainly absolutely people out there bikepacking not in competitive ways, but like the online community, the community that like the bike industry recognized as bikepacking, they associated it with racing. And the way that you found routes was generally through race routes, like the Tour Divide or the Arizona Trail Race or the
Colorado Trail Race.
Totally. And that was really interesting because I think that we had both had these amazing experiences bikepacking in non-competitive ways that were just as, if not more meaningful than the competitive ways. And so we saw, and with that grow in popularity, we also saw with that like instances and examples that happened now like 5 or 6 years ago of like racers just traveling through landscapes on these routes, like in a pretty selfish and like entitled sort of way, where they were like being rude or just like taking advantage of things like public spaces and leaving trash and just like not necessarily behaving in ways that we wanted like that broader outdoor public to view bikepackers.
Right.
And so the opportunity we saw was to form an organization that would kind of advocate for a positive user group identity by connecting people with bikepacking in meaningful ways through well-developed routes and an understanding and appreciation of the landscapes that they're riding through, and eventually through community events, and like lowering the barriers to bikepacking.
Yeah.
And so we founded Bikepacking Roots technically in 2017.
Okay.
And it's a 501c3 nonprofit. And just last month, we hired our first new ED. Kurt has been in the ED role, and he is now in a routes development role, and I'm the education director. And Allie Johnson is our new executive director, who will just take the organization even farther down its mission.
That's awesome. I think, and the website is what, bikepacking or bikepacking Roots?
And it's ROOTS.org.
Got it. Yeah. I mean, that's super helpful. And if anyone wants to explore that website, the routes are so cool. Like, how do you discover the routes? Like, who builds them? What does that look like? And like, what qualifies? Like, obviously you've ridden, like, what's in my backyard, the Cocopelli Trail, and that you can do it in one day or you can bike pack it. So like, how do you, or same with like the White Rim. So what's like the qualifications for this?
Well, I guess technically there are two different things that we have as projects going on. But so Bikepacking Roots is developing generally longer distance bikepacking routes that are, and the intention for them is to serve the bikepacking community. We have 8,000 members who have surveys on what sort of style riding they value. And so we're trying to put together routes that just set people up for success in what they're looking for. And so like we have dirt road only routes, we have a couple single track oriented routes. And the main goal with these routes is to provide a quality riding experience that doesn't sandbag anyone. It's fully legal and well vetted, and is accompanied by a guidebook, not a guide person, and just has all the information that people would need to go have a good time on it. And you can see all of those on the Bikepacking Roots website. And then a separate project has been the Backcountry Bike Challenge that, outside of Bikepacking Roots, Kurt and I have just kind of used experiences such as riding on the Cocopelli Trail and the kind of growing interest in like some shorter, either big day efforts or shorter multi-day efforts, as a way of just highlighting like what we see as world-class backcountry riding that's here in the U.S., most of which are more single track oriented routes that have these trail organizations behind them that do incredible work to make these possible, and they're just not necessarily as known. And so while there are some places that like do benefit from less travel, there are also some trails that like their future kind of really relies on people experiencing them and loving them and advocating for them, and especially when we're thinking about like mountain bike trail access. I do personally believe in many instances there is a space for bikes to coexist with conservation efforts that do preserve the health of the landscape, and bikers can have a role in that, and in doing that we can connect them with these more backcountry rides.
Yeah. Do you know, I remember you just got done, or you were doing some of the Arizona Trail just shortly, a couple weeks ago, or like 2 weeks ago or less. But like some of the pictures I saw of that trail, like that, like it was just like a field.
Totally.
And so is that like a trail that's like, people are like, hey, use it or lose it kind of thing.
Yeah, the crazy thing about that is that the Arizona Trail is a really great example of the role of trail organizations
Yeah.
being so critical in the future as the landscapes face climate change and the impacts of big climate events. And so in the case of the Arizona Trail, that's an 800-mile trail. A lot of it is open to bikes. There's even some bike detours that are single track
Oh,
designed
cool.
by the ATA for mountain bikes. And the Arizona Trail Association is, while that trail traverses public land for the most part, it isn't really stewarded by the land management agencies of the federal government, like the Forest Service and the BLM. It is stewarded by the Arizona Trail Association. And so that trail, in general, for an 800-mile trail, is in really great shape. And then this last year, there's a historic drought followed by a historic monsoon. And so what happened is that the pictures you saw where there's no dirt, like no trail, it's just overgrown.
I was just shocked.
Totally. And like I rode that section in April and it was like 2 foot wide buff single track.
Really?
And
Okay.
it is. And so what that experience just a couple of weeks ago on that trail highlighted for me is that like the Arizona Trail Association, like they have crews out there working on the impacts of this monsoon season already, and they'll have them out there and they'll invest $1 million in that trail this next year in trail work, including in volunteer hours.
Yeah.
And so trails that are out there that don't have organizations like the Arizona Trail Association behind them, or like your local mountain bike advocacy trail group, those are the trails we're going to lose. And so that's like as they face levels of impact from climate events that just like take that many resources. And so in the Backcountry Bike Challenge, our goal is for people to go have these amazing experiences on the Arizona Trail and all these other trails, and then have that similar aha moment of like, oh wow, like this wouldn't be possible without this trail organization, and to support them.
Totally. I mean, I rode a lot of the Cocopelli Trail, and I mean, hours when like never saw a single soul. And it's like, I was like, God, who is doing this? Like, and like, you're so far removed from it and you take it for granted that, there's not just like ferries out there maintaining these trails. And, I feel so lucky to live in a place where I have so much access, and you're almost just like, well, what can I do to help? And so like, what would you say to someone like me or anyone else that's like, hey, I appreciate this stuff. I want to use it more. I want these to be preserved. So like, what are some actionable things that like just everyday person can do to make sure that they're like contributing to preserving, this kind of access?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think the answer is like, you can offer what you have. And so for some people, that's money. And so you can give money. For some people, that's like your time. And so you can go participate in trail days. For some people, you have some sort of social platform that's like your voice and sharing and elevating the work of those organizations. For some people, that's like at Bikepacking Roots, we have people often volunteer, be like, hey, like I have a skill set in like CRM management, which I didn't know what that was until a few years ago. But
yeah, we have like a whole person
that level of
dedicated,
of like totally of being like, hey, you're good at like website development, or like you're good at photography, or you're good at grant writing, or you're good at like volunteer organizing, like all those skills actually really support these little nonprofits that work on trails, because a lot of these nonprofits, especially the smaller, really local ones, like do rely on that level of volunteering. Like, oh yeah, like we'll help, we will fully accept help at grant writing, or like if you have an excavator and want to help us put in a pit toilet, like that is like just, I think I'd encourage people to like think about what you have that could be valuable, and then if you're willing to offer it, because it will be way more appreciated than you could ever imagine. And then on the bigger picture, because so much of what our trails are threatened by is access, and then on a bigger, even bigger, more important scale, I think is like the climate crisis that we're in, is that just go out and vote and know that like your who you choose as your representatives at state, local, state, and federal government has a bigger impact on like the future of these places than we can really digest. And there's a really interesting statistic that I don't remember because I'm not a numbers person, but I will try to find it and we can follow up with it.
Yeah.
That like who you vote for has a bigger carbon footprint than like anything that we as non-billionaires can do.
Yeah, interesting.
Which is really interesting. So
yeah, that's fascinating. And I think, I mean, one, I mean, off when we're done with the cafe ride, we should chat about just like stuff I want to do. Like, of course, like I think, you know, I'm so lucky. Like I'm heading tonight to go to Moab, and I'm like, God, I'm gonna ride these amazing places, and you know, it's like this gorgeous landscape, and you know, it's free to me, but it's also like it's very in your face when you look at the Colorado River and you look at all this other stuff that's happening, and you're like, holy shit, there's definitely like this has changed significantly since I was here a year ago, you know, however much. And so making sure that we're preserving that, or at least maintaining, you know, helping our climate in any way we can is important. And then I guess, you know, like what's like next for you? I know you've got some like huge plans coming up that's like personal to you, and you know, also you can chat about like what's up next for the nonprofit, and like where do you hoping it's heading?
yeah. Well, so for Bikepacking Roots, what's next is I get to release a project related to Leave No Trace in a couple weeks that I'm really excited about.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and that's been both something I've been passionate about, and it's been a fun collaboration with Leave No Trace. So if you follow Bikepacking Roots on Instagram, you'll see that coming out in early December. There'll be some cool resources for folks. And then, and there are also just a number of really exciting route projects in development with BPR, and those are all public and on our website right now. If you're from the Midwest, we just released, or have interest in going to the Midwest, you don't have to be from there. But there's a really cool route that goes around Lake Superior.
Interesting.
Looks like a really, and having just spent a little bit of time in that area this summer, like that is actually one of the routes that we've recently developed that I actually really want to ride a lot of.
That's,
I mean, say that a lot of the routes I want to ride, but like that's one I'd really want to give that time to.
The, you know, like I run the cycling like FKT website, which is like super low key, but recently someone submitted a route from East Texas, and then one was right across Wisconsin, and it's just so fun seeing these other routes, especially in the Midwest or like, you know, the South, where I'm like, oh my God, like this looks so cool. Like I'm so like Mountain West. That's the only place to go. It's like Montana, Colorado, Utah. And so it's really exciting to see routes come up that gets you excited to like travel or go and do something and see something new. So I get that. Like, it feels like there's just not enough time, or there's not enough athletic time and recovery to do all of them.
Totally. Yeah, so true.
And then so what are you doing? Oh my God.
Cute dog. You're like, can I tow him? You could easily tow Loaf.
Loaf is coming to Moab with me. So I'm excited.
I really want to get a trailer and try to tow Hank, who's 50 pounds. Like a gravel bikepacking route. That's a goal.
Amazing. And then, so I know you mentioned that you are training for a 24-hour race. So you're no stranger to endurance. So where is that, and what is that?
Yeah, so that is 24-hour World Championships. It'll be in May of 2022 in Italy. And the 24-hour World Champs has been canceled the last 2 years because of COVID. It was actually supposed to be this last weekend this year.
Oh, wow.
In Australia. And as we know, Australia has been like really
Not
locked
well.
down.
Yeah.
So no race there. And they've just fully canceled it and moved it to Italy next year.
Where in Italy?
I'm going to butcher how it's called, how it's said, but Finale, Ligure.
Okay. Is it close to like the Dolomites?
I think it's near on the Mediterranean.
Oh, cool. And I'm assuming it's like loops.
Yeah, so 24-hour races are kind of funny, kind of strange, but an interesting challenge in the right mindset in that it is one lap and you try to ride as many laps as you can in 24 hours.
Oh my God.
I think one of the biggest 24-hour races probably in the world is 24 Hours of Old Pueblo down in Tucson in February.
Yeah.
And if you've never been to that, it's so worth going because you can have any experience you want to have. You could have an incredibly competitive experience, or you could have an incredibly party-oriented experience, or an incredibly like family-friendly winter desert camping experience.
Interesting. So, do they have other
yes,
do they have other like hour distances?
They don't have hour distances, but 24-hour races tend to have multiple categories. So like solo is what the world championships will be in.
Okay.
Where you just ride by yourself all the laps. But then you can also race duo, where you could alternate laps. You can race in a 4-person team, or it's like a relay, or a 5-person team. And I think the corporate teams even have more people.
Interesting.
So if you're suddenly on like a 5-person team, depending on y'all's goals, like you could do like 2 or 3 laps. And in the 24 hours, you come back to your pit and get to hang out with your friends.
Nice. Although as an ultra runner, I never stopped at an aid station for longer than like 2 seconds to like get food and get out, because I don't want to have to I don't want my body to know what comfort is during a certain time frame. I'm like, I don't want to motivate again. I've motivated once to get here. Not doing this 10 more times.
Totally. And so that's why I think solo is easier than duo. Whereas like with duo, you ride a lap really fast for like an hour and then you stop for 1 hour.
No thanks.
You pull down, you probably have to sit down, you have to eat, and then if you have time, you maybe get to warm up again, but you generally like kind of stop warming up and you just go out hard again on cold legs.
Ugh.
And that sucks.
Yeah, I do not.
People love it. It's like fun. The team element is really fun.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, really I mean, yeah, that sounds rad. I mean, I would love to go and like hang out or see and like crew or I don't know, do something. Yep. I love that stuff. But I'm super thankful that, you were able to join on this. And is there anything else you want to say before we head out?
I don't think so. I just appreciate everyone for joining and listening about like what it means to be a cyclist and like an advocate for trails and landscapes, and for being patient with how I managed my phone. If everyone could see what this looks like right now, I think you'd get a kick out of it. My phone is plugged in, so iPhone with like the cord sticking out the bottom, so it's like propped on a cord, okay? On top of a LaCroix box, leaning against a potted plant with a ceramic mug on one side, so it's slightly tilted, so this whole thing doesn't just fall over.
Yeah, I'm going to show you my setup. You're on my, I used to direct ultra marathon. Oh my God, yeah. I used to direct an ultra marathon, and that's the glass, like the finisher glass. It's behind it. And you're propped up on like my mail that's in a little basket to like keep it organized. So but no, yeah. Thank you so much, and let's chat about what I can do, what the Pros Closet can do, and like we have the Radavist, which sounds like the Radavist definitely has like a very similar ethos to a lot of what you've talked about, and so yeah, I would love to be able to help. I think what you're doing is so rad, and hopefully we can get together in the desert in the spring and ride bikes.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess a last plug for what's next related to the Pros Closet is I'm heading out to Baja at the end of this weekend to go bikepacking on vacation and like sleep on beaches and eat tacos. And my bike is purely a way to get from the beaches to the tacos, and then the tacos.
Fish tacos.
Exactly, fresh fish tacos, and I'm excited to share via the Pros Closet IG live, hopefully. In December about that trip. So we'll be
I'm super excited. And yeah, thank you so much for just, I don't know, just being like a super good advocate. And, you know, I think on like a extremely personal note, like after like you did the Cocopelli, you know, like, so I did the White Rim, and when I was passing Cocopelli on my way home, I was like, oh, I should do that. Having no knowledge of what the Cocopelli is, like none. I'm not a mountain biker. And I saw like you got the record, and I just like messaged you, and there was no, it was just like, you know, a wealth of information. And I think, you know, you could have been like, no, I don't want anyone to do this. Don't be, you know, don't do this. But I think, you know, you're just such a good advocate for the sport and for, you know, women in cycling that I really appreciate it. And we need more people like you.
Thank you. We need more women doing these things, and so I want to help anyone in any way I can.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much, and I'm excited to follow all of your adventures.
Thanks, Reese.
Yep. Bye, Kate.